What is hypnosis in practice?
Lewis, it's more like waking up than falling asleep. The thing that scares people the most about hypnosis is the idea that they're losing control, that some weird guy is going to dangle a watch in front of them and make them do things. It's really a way of gaining control over yourself. The fact that you can be open to being different, to try out what it is like to be a different kind of person, means you can do that for yourself. And that's what I want to do, is teach people hypnosis is just a state of highly focused attention. Have you ever gotten so caught up in a good movie that you kind of forget you're watching the movie and enter the imagined world? That's what hypnosis is like. It's been called believed in imagination. So what you do is you focus very intensely. You put outside of conscious awareness things that would ordinarily be in consciousness, which we do all the time, by the way. Right now, I presume you have sensations in your back and your bottom touching that nice black chair you're sitting in. Is that right?
Yes.
But I'm hoping you weren't aware of that until I brought it to your attention. If you were, we could just stop now. So our brains are filtering out tons of information in order to concentrate on what you want to pay attention to. And in hypnosis, you do that more intensely. So now it's like looking through the telephoto lens of a camera. What you see with great detail, but you're less aware of the context. And perhaps the coolest thing about hypnosis is this capacity to kind of get over yourself, to try out being different and see what it feels like. And we know what's going on in the brain when that happens. But I think of hypnosis more and more, Lewis, and I've used it with about 7,000 people in my career. I think of it more and more as a way to sort of set aside your usual assumptions of who you are and what you are, and try out being different. It's a way of changing in a hurry, of making yourself into someone different and see if you like it. And so it's sort of like one of those apps on your smartphone that you just haven't used yet, you haven't opened yet. It's an ability the brain has that we just don't take full advantage of. And hypnosis is a very good way to do that.
And on a deeper level, when you are reaching a state like that, as you mentioned, of hyperfocus, what is actually going on in the brain? What is changing on a deeper level?
We've used functional magnetic resonance imaging, Lewis. It's a technique in which you go into a scanner, makes a fair amount of noise, and it can magnetize and demagnetize your brain in a way that you can see the anatomy beautifully. You can image the anatomy, but also the function. You can see where there's more or less blood flow, and the brain allocates blood flow based on activity, on what it's doing. And so it's a very powerful way of seeing what happens in the brain. And what we've discovered, taking high and low hypnotizable people, putting them in the scanner in and out of hypnotic states, is three things happen. One is you turn down activity in what's called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. The cingulate cortex is like a C on its ends, right smack in the middle of the brain. And the anterior part, the dorsal part of the anterior cingulate cortex, is our alarm system. You can think of it as sort of like the alarm system in your house, if you have one, that you set it at a certain level and something will happen and it'll go off. And we call it the salience network in the brain. It's part of the brain that says, boom, there's a loud noise. You get distracted. You have to see what's going on. That's your salience network saying, could be trouble, better do something. And in hypnosis, you turn down that activity. So we found in one study that the more deeply hypnotized people felt, the less activity there was in the salience network. So the part of your brain that could distract you is kind of going to sleep and saying, do whatever you want. I'm not going to worry about it. So that allows you to absorb yourself more deeply in what's going on. The second thing that happens is the executive control network up in the prefrontal cortex, which hopefully you and I are using right now to have this discussion, is hyper connected to the insula. The insula is a little island of tissue. Insula is Latin for island, in the middle of the frontal cortex that is a mind-body relay. So it's a part of the brain where the brain can control what's happening in the body, and where also it can perceive what's going on in the body. And so you have hyperconnectivity there, and people in hypnosis can do remarkable things. They can put outside of conscious awareness pain. They can focus intently when good athletes are, doing their best. They can be in a state of highly intense focus and control their bodies well. The head of the Stanford swimming team, the coach, got in touch with me once because he found that these women who were superb swimmers, many of them wind up in the Olympics, were swimming better in practice than they were in meets. And he thought, that's weird. You'd think normally you get your adrenaline pumping, you do your best. But what we discovered was that they were getting distracted by the women in the other lanes during a meet. Now, swimming isn't a contact sport. It doesn't really matter what the women in the other lanes do. What matters is how you're relating to your body, the process that you're going through. And so I had them do self-hypnosis and just focus intently on you swimming your best race without worrying at all about what else is going on. And as they did that, they learned to tune into their body and how they managed their body and how they responded to the pressure of the water and the way they coordinated activity in their bodies. And they wound up swimming faster in meets because that's what they were trained to pay attention to. So that's mind-body activity through the insula. The third thing that happens is that you get inverse connectivity. So when the prefrontal cortex is working, when you're deciding what to do, like you're doing now, you inhibit activity in the back part of the cingulate cortex. That's the posterior cingulate cortex. We call it the default mode, part of the default mode network. And the default mode network is kind of what's going on when you're not doing anything in particular. And you wind up thinking about yourself, reflecting on who you are, what your parents wanted you to be, how you turned out, what you should be. I call it the my fault mode network, the part of your brain where you get troubled about yourself. And it can sometimes it helps you set standards for who you are and what you are. But sometimes it's that part of your brain that says, oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Why would you do that? And so it can get in the way of changing, of being different. And in hypnosis, you can inhibit that part of the brain and allow yourself to try out being different. So, when people I hate these stage show hypnosis things, but it scares people. They think, oh my God, that guy took control of the football coach and made him dance like a ballerina and all that. And, I get it. I understand the concern. But you know what? It's actually an interesting lesson. It's actually teaching you how to try out being different, doing something that you would never ordinarily do. And that's a bad example of a good thing. Because if you want to, if you say you're in pain and the pain is distracting you and it's awful and it scares you, there are two things going on. There's probably something wrong with some part of your body that's sending signals to the brain. But there's also something about the way you respond to it that you can actually control. And if you just broke your arm, you want to pay attention to it and get it fixed. Or if you're having crushing substernal chest pain, you may be having a heart attack, you better get to the ER. But a lot of time, the pain we live with is different. It's something that is an annoyance. It's a reminder there's something wrong. You got to take care of it, but you don't have to let it hijack your attention. So I have people in hypnosis change the way they manage pain. Imagine you're doing something that actually gives you relief. If you're taking a warm bath or you're putting an ice pack on it, and get your brain into the same state it's in when you're actually doing that. And you know what? You can alter pain. So that's where changing your presumption about who you are and what you have to do and be is something that can actually change how you feel. It can reduce your pain, reduce your stress. And so that's why I say hypnosis is like an underutilized app in our brains that can help us modulate how we feel, what we do.